Today on Locked On Rockies, well, it wasn't the prettiest win, but it was a good win for the Colorado Rockies. The offense backed up the pitching. Kyle Freeland managed adversity. The bullpen was good, albeit a little shaky, far from perfect, but a solid win for the Colorado Rockies.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 9th day of April in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day is talk Rockies baseball, free and streaming right here on the Locked On Rockies podcast, where you can be part of the show, just like at Ohio Rocks. It's a shame the bullpen has been so poor outside of Mears, Vodnik, and Bird. I think Friday was J-Law's second appearance this season, so hopefully he can get more work this week and start trending upwards. Conversely, Kinley has seen plenty of work, and he's not been as solid as the Rockies need him to be. That was in response to our bullpen implosion episode from yesterday. Bullpen, good yesterday, far from great, but you know what? The Rockies held on, and we saw things from key members of the Rockies club that I'm encouraged by. As I keep fiddling with my mic here as I'm trying to get it in the right spot. I think I got it. But we're going to dive into the game last night, what we liked, what we didn't like, what was good news, good signs for the Rockies. And we're also going to talk, of course, about Kyle Freeland getting a little bit of revenge, a little bit of frustration, a little bit of heat there from him as well. We're going to talk about that. And if you look at it, even though the Rockies record isn't great lately, the Rockies have been scoring runs, and we will dive into that as well. Before we get into everything today, just want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. All right, we are going to dive into it here. Let's start with Kyle Freeland. I think this is easily one of the biggest stories of the game yesterday. The fact that Kyle Freeland has gotten out to two horrendous starts, and the Rockies needed him. And that's a good, solid Kyle Freeland start. I know he goes down 4-1 at one point after a tough top of the fourth, where only two of the runs that score in that inning out of the four were charged as earned. Kyle Freeland goes 5 innings pitched, gives up 6 hits, 2 earned, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. The walks, of course, are something you don't want to deal with, but we got to see the Kyle Freeland we were a little bit more comfortable with. And in reality, if Ryan McMahon doesn't misread a really hard hit ground ball, then the Rockies don't give up 4 runs in that one. It would be a 2-1 ball game off of the fact that it was just some bad luck there when it came to Ryan McMahon trying to field this absolute really laser that was kind of hit. It had all sorts of funky topspin there. But the walks are going to be a problem if you walking multiple batters and not being able to strike them out. Is going to be a problem. If Kyle Freeland has to make sure that he's able to get the weak ground ball. The problem with some of especially that chopper that ate up Ryan McMahon is it wasn't that weak contact. It wasn't hit weak enough. I know the spin was weird and it wasn't necessarily blasted, but that type of stuff will get in the way. One of the best signs, though, throughout most of that game yesterday for Kyle Freeland, a lot of the hits, a lot of the opportunities that the Diamondbacks were generating scoring opportunities off of were weak contact. Kyle Freeland, there was the biggest improvement we saw was Kyle Freeland was hitting his spots to get weak to effective contact. I think he broke like 2 or 3 bats yesterday. There was definitely a lot to enjoy, and you take the earned runs out of that factor, and it's a 1-run ball game when Kyle Freeland comes out of the game instead of a 3-run ball game. And I will say, like, I don't think I'm sure they handled it. I'm sure they talked about it. You don't need to be trying to throw Montero the ball about 5,000 miles an hour at Montero over there, trying to take his head off, even when you're being frustrated. Don't love that. But I'm sure that's something his teammates with Buddy and everything that they can get in. Because, I mean, it would be hard to not blame Kyle Freeland for being incredibly frustrated at that point, especially with the way that inning went. But the good news is he comes back out after that. He shuts the door in the fifth, and he sets up for the Rockies bullpen to come in. And Peter Lambert doing a nice job in that relief. He's had 2 good relief appearances now, long relief appearances in that ball game. Justin Lawrence, we got to see the Justin Lawrence. We know that's the Justin Lawrence experience we need to get. That's the type of stuff he needs to be able to do. He needs to come in and he needs to get strikeouts. He needs to hit the zone immediately. And last night he did so. So the biggest thing here with yesterday's sample is recreating it. Now it's got to be done again. This has to be something the Rockies can now replicate with Kyle Freeland on the bump. And that includes Kyle Freeland. The next time Kyle Freeland pitches, it'll be on the road. And so that means this team is going to have to build around him, because one of the best things that the team showed yesterday, and I think it's a huge boost for Kyle Freeland, is the team backed him up yesterday. They didn't, after, especially the McMahon's two out 2-run error. I believe it was 2 outs. I can't remember at that situations. But even with that error, the Rockies, it didn't look like the life was completely sucked out of them. And they at least got the inning to stop at 4. It wasn't, man, with the way it felt, it was like they were just another broken bat single or one. Because, I mean, the Diamondbacks lineup still can swing it. I know that it wasn't as full as what we've seen before. And the Diamondbacks had been scuffling since the Rockies had seen them to open up the season. But we know what that Diamondbacks offense is capable of. We know how much firepower is in that lineup. So for the Rockies to escape while giving them the opportunities, that was great. But is it the greatest Kyle Freeland start we've ever seen? No, but it was a Kyle Freeland start that we needed to see and Kyle Freeland needed to get. It's a confidence booster for the Rockies, and it was a good sign that this team was able to handle out the adversity throughout the game while going up against one of the best starters in the business. I mean, this is a Rockies team that scored 7 runs last night while also striking out 14 times, 10 of them against Zach Gallen there in the first 5 innings pitched. I mean, the Rockies went and tagged Gallen for 3 earned runs, hitting him 8 times in 5 innings pitched. That's what's got to happen to Zach Gallen when he comes into Coors Field. Well, getting opportunities to get wins, to beat one of the best pitchers in the game is tough. So for the Rockies to not only jump out, finally breaking the streak, I believe it was 17 games or something ridiculous. Literally another example of the Rockies being in charge of one of the worst streaks in baseball of scoring first and being the team that scores first. Let me actually get the stat here. I gotta read it. I gotta read the stat verbatim here. Let me just fire up on the old Twitter machine here, just so I can get the retweet that Patrick Saunders had, or Patrick Lyons. I'm sorry. For the first time in 17 games dating back to last September, the Rockies have taken the first lead of the game. That's crazy. I mean, and you think about the fact that it took 11 games into this season for the Rockies to be on the board first. A little signs of some change yesterday. We saw signs of this team playing a complete baseball game. The team played 9 innings of baseball yesterday, something they haven't done a lot this season and something that they struggled to do at points last year. Like I said, not perfect, far from it, but lots to be positive about, especially starting with Kyle Freeland having his best start of the season. And the bullpen, minus Nick Mears, coming out and having a strong performance as well. We're going to keep diving into some of the good stuff here. And take a look at the fact that the Rockies are scoring runs lately, and that includes going back onto the road a little bit. We're going to dive into the Rockies offense and more coming up on segment number 2 of today's episode of Locked on Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Gametime. Man, I can't hype up Gametime enough. There is no better spot to get you tickets for the biggest and best events in your area. It ain't just sports, comedy, theater, concerts. If it's a big thing going on in your area, Gametime has you covered. And they aren't only going to get you a great deal, they're going to show you a picture of your seat. They're going to make sure that you got that guarantee, that Gametime guarantee. Because if you find somewhere else with a seat in the same section, another place with the lower price, Gametime's going to credit you 110% of the difference. You can see the pricing all up front, all right there on the super easy to use app. Gametime has gotten me into the All-Star game, had me see the Postal Service, and I'm going to keep using Gametime anytime I need tickets for the biggest events in my area. All you got to do is check out Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime, and for a limited time, all users can get $20 off any MLB purchase of $150 or more in the Gametime app with code First Pitch. Terms do apply. That's code FIRSTPITCH for $20 off from March 25th to April 14th only. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This is the Locked on Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Shouting out all of our everydayers, all of the folks that are checking out Locked on Rockies on the Locked on Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show, where you're liking of the videos and subscribing to the Locked on Rockies YouTube channel is the easiest and best way to help the show grow. Plus, sometimes I read comments. I think that there's lots of good stuff going on here in the Locked on Rockies comment section. So go join the other Rockies fans there talking Rockies baseball and hang out with us here on the Locked on Rockies podcast. Hey, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked on Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked on Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, folks. I wanted to highlight a positive trend for the Colorado Rockies here so far in this season. And we can zoom out. We'll zoom all the way out here to all of the games here. So the Rockies now have played 11 ball games in this season. And in those 11 ball games, the Rockies have scored at least 5+ runs, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 times. So roughly half the time the Rockies have scored over 5 runs. And that includes the win in Arizona. That includes the close loss in the finale against the Cubs. This Rockies team is showing that their offense does have a little bit of life, and, definitely a benefit being back at Coors Field as well. Since being back at Coors Field, the Rockies have scored now, 25 runs compared to the 17, 19, the 20 runs that they scored. I'm sorry, I don't know if I have my math right there. Hold on. Let me 1, 3, 5, 14, 16, 24. They scored 24 runs on the road. More games, obviously, on the road to start the season than at home. But you can see, one, the benefit of of the Rockies being at home, but two, what I like from the Rockies offense is the fact that they can score runs. There is run scoring potential and run generation potential. The Rockies are hitting home runs. I mean, they're not hitting home runs at the pace of some of these other teams, but the Rockies are leaving the yard more frequently, it seems like this year, than at stretches of last year. And it's great to see that nearly in half the games the Rockies have played, they have put up at least 5. Now, you'd hope that with that record, that shouldn't translate to more wins, which it should. But at the same time, when we were looking at concerns, when we were looking at things that worry us, and when we look at the fact that this team to start the season really didn't do much in most of the in terms of offense there against the Diamondbacks, scoring 5 of their runs in 3 games against Arizona, while Arizona would outscore them, with scores like 16-1, 7-3, 5-1. So the Rockies offense kind of looked outmatched, outpowered, and it trickled over into the Chicago series, where in the first 2 games of the series, the Rockies only put up 2 runs. But then it's the 8 spot. It's the 10 spot against the Rays. It's the 6 against the Rays. It's the 7 against Arizona last night. That shows you that this team, when swinging it, has the potential to do some damage. It's encouraging signs, because I look at this offense and I'm seeing stuff that I worry about, but I'm also encouraged by the fact that this team is generating offense to start the season with so many young guys and so many new looks in it. And some players that are getting just unlucky. Right now, the Rockies have hit 11 home runs. That's good enough for being in a massive tie with a bunch of folks. The Dodgers are out ahead at 17, but the Rockies are just in line in terms of home runs with the Phillies, with the Cubs, with the Reds, with the Diamondbacks. The Yankees and the Red Sox only have 2 more than Colorado as well. This is where the Rockies need to be in terms of offense. This is where the Rockies need to be in terms of production. When you look at strikeouts, they're still one of the top striking out teams in all of baseball, currently 4th behind the Dodgers, Mariners, and Pirates with 108 strikeouts. But this Rockies team is 12th in baseball right now in terms of runs scored. They've scored 49 runs here so far this season. So they aren't stumbling out of the gate into an anemic offense. And this is while, 2 massive contributors to your offense are out the gate cold. I mean, Chris Bryant contributes yesterday with an RBI. Brendan Rodgers had a couple of hits, but the offense is headlined by the fact that Ryan McMahon continues to be stellar. And the guys in the bottom of the order, I loved the lineup shifting yesterday, by the way. I like mixing it up. I like seeing how they handle different things. Nolan Jones starting to heat up. And Brenton Doyle. I mean, Brenton Doyle's swing is night and day different compared to last year. It's still small. I understand that. But you wouldn't see Doyle taking swings like he was taking last night. You wouldn't see him taking pitches the way that he took pitches last night. Brenton Doyle in 40 at-bats has 11 hits. 2 of them are home runs, 5 RBI for a line of 275, 310, 835. There is a lot of potential in this offense, especially when you factor in the fact that if Doyle swings a good bat in the 9 hole, well, you're leading up to a guy that's shown until the full cool off or an injury or whatever, if it happens, Charlie Blackmon has shown that not only is he still effective, he's still a great leadoff man. Charlie Blackmon had a triple and a home run yesterday, a leadoff triple. His first AB of the game, I believe, was the triple. And that's his second triple of the season. There is a pulse with this Rockies offense as well. When you're looking at the things to get a little bit more encouraged by and you're hoping as things continue to move on, the pitching is always going to make you worry. I think that there's going to be a lot of situations like last night where you're sitting there and you're saying, is the 3-run lead enough? And it certainly did not feel like it was going to be enough there for some moments in that ball game yesterday. But I feel like my confidence in the Rockies offense is building. I'm really encouraged to see the amount of runs that they have been able to score early in the year going up against good teams. Remember, I know these are all teams that are playoff caliber teams that the Rockies are facing and good pitching. Now, remember, in the first 12 games of the season, if you count today's game, the Rockies are going to see Zach Gallen and I'm sorry. Oh man, I'm drawing a total blank on I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on the pitcher for the Rays. Merrill Kelly. Thank you. That's who it is. So in a quarter of the games that you faced, you faced 2 elite pitchers. And mixed in there, you faced a Rays team that's got good arms. I know they're scuffling, but certainly a team that can pitch. And you ran into some of the Cubs good arms, not necessarily as dominant as some of these names, but it's a good reminder that if the Rockies win this series, if the Rockies are able to take home this game tonight, then that's a series win against Arizona, making up for that first series, getting it close to, I think actually that would even up the season series between the Diamondbacks and the Rockies so far, put the Rockies and the Diamondbacks in the same record category, and the Rockies will get wins off of Gallen and Kelly. Why am I drawing such a blank there? Maybe because I just like to block out any dominant pitchers there. But the offense is showing signs of life and showing signs of promise, which is great news for the Colorado Rockies. And hopefully they can get the job done and get the series win tonight. They need a series win. The next thing, we can keep pointing out these things, but the next thing the Rockies got to do, win a series, especially at home. All right, we'll kind of elaborate a little bit more on that. It's a time now for the Rockies where it has to become about back-to-back performances, building on momentum. We'll talk about that after a hiccup, and we take a quick break coming up in segment number 3. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players like the Colorado Rockies. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. It could be Blackman hits. It could be Freeland strikeouts. It could be whatever. You just pick more or less on those stats and you can watch the winnings roll in. And playoffs are around the corner, and PrizePicks has you covered with 100 times your money as you can take on the world's best players and a new level of fantasy sports during basketball's postseason. That's coming up here real soon. So you are not going to want to miss out on your chance to win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks. You can download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Yes, that's right, up to $100 when you download the PrizePicks app and use code LOCKEDONMLB. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Folks, this is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Shout outs to all my everydayers out there. Thank you so much for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. What's on your mind, Rockies fans? Let me know in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comments section. What are you thinking about when it comes to the Colorado Rockies here on this lovely 9th day of April? Now, here's the last, to wrap up the show. Last night, there were things to be frustrated about. There were things to be happy about. All good and dandy. Now, just like we've said multiple times before, build the momentum. Build the momentum. Put the good back to back to back. String together wins. Instead of it being losing streaks, we need winning streaks, even small ones. I don't want 2-game skids. I would rather it go 1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1 rather than it be 2 wins, 6 losses, 3 wins, 4 losses. Blah. The Rockies need to become better at streaks. They go on too many negative streaks. They go on too many. It goes along too long when the Rockies bullpen is blowing games. The Rockies pitching staff can't do this. The Rockies offense can't hit on the road. Build and stack momentum. That is going to be another something that's to watch here as the season goes on. Can the Rockies put together a series win to fight their way out of the basement here and make themselves a little bit more relevant in the NL West at this stage of the game? Make everyone in the back of their heads, just kind of be like, well, maybe we underestimated the Rockies a little bit. And you're only going to start building those thoughts. You're only going to start being able to build that presence about yourself if you really, truly can string together solid stretches of baseball. It doesn't matter how much we want to dive into the weeds and how much we want to, the Rockies offense is scoring runs in all these games, but it's still losing, win, losing, win, lose. There's not enough winning back to back to break up all of these things. I mean, there's just too many bad stretches, bad history, bad things being set or continue to be set or extended by the Rockies to start this season. You have to use wins like last night and to make it a winning week of baseball. I really do like the Spilly philosophy that we've heard on the broadcast so far this year. If you've been watching the TV broadcast, working the game in 10-game increments is actually a really great way to think about it. A lot happens in 10 games. But there's also so many chunks of 10 that happen in the season that you can flush out the first 10, and now you work on the second 10, especially when the first 10 of this season was the first 10 games of the season, where there's a lot to shaking off rust, even with spring training. It's getting back in the groove of regular season baseball. So now that you've gone through the first 10 and you stumbled through those first 10, how do we make the adjustments? How do we get better? How does the team avoid 2-8? 3-7 stretches, because that could happen again. If this team wants to get back into that competitive mindset, if that team wants to get back to being competitive in the league, you got to start making those 10-game stretches 500, 6-4, 7-3, 4-6. You got to make it a little bit more. You got to put a little more oomph and stringing things together, because that's the Rockies. We can see the flash. We can see the potential. We can see the promise, but it's about consistently putting it on the field, putting it together and making it so that the Rockies are putting themselves in positions to win ball games and using their strengths. And, though it hasn't been a winning weekend fully or a winning homestand for the Colorado Rockies, getting the series win makes you feel a little bit better and washes some of the bad tastes out of your mouth of the Rays series. And it shows that the Rockies, since game one, are taking steps in the right direction. But now that we're seeing now that we're seeing signs of bounce back from some of the players, and we're seeing some good starts from some of the Rockies players, it's now time for them to put that together and surprise some folks here early in the season by putting together good stretches of baseball. But I think operating and looking through that lens that Spilly has with those 10-game samples, I really think that that's a good way to look at where the Rockies are at and where the team and where the players are at currently in that phase of the season. And as we go on, we can continue to go back and look and see the type of stretches that we've had. There's just so often, we've talked about this before too, it's just so often that the Rockies get in their own way. And in last night's game felt like that. I mean, certainly. There in the fourth, when it was a 2-out broken bat single there, and then I believe it was a walk, and then the wheels start shaking and things start getting a little iffy for the Rockies, and then they go down. And I'm still not in the phase where I'm overly confident that the Rockies are going to come back and win ball games. They've shown that they can. They did that. They did that last night, but until they put together the first winning week of baseball of the season, I'm still going to be sitting here a little nervous. And until the bullpen really puts together a solid stretch, and the starters, I'm going to be nervous. But the Rockies have the potential here to put some good games together and start building on some momentum here as they continue to go through the tough schedule of the start of the season. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for joining us and making us your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. You can also find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can join us and we'll fire off your Rockies hot takes in the Locked On Rockies comment section. But thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. You can go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs, all available for you on your favorite streaming services. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.